Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about the war from within and other things. It is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. And so the thing that struck me as the most interesting story is, of course, so big it's been covered a lot of places. Trump and Hegseth had this big speech before all the military generals and admirals. And what I'm hearing from the inside story is the real point here is Hegseth wants to run for president. And he thought the point of this would make it show him off as being a great leader. And then Trump found out and undercut him by crashing the event to make sure that the focus stayed on him, which is happening apparently all through the Trump administration. Everybody is jockeying to be the next president after Trump. But anyway, Hegseth's speech was pathetic. But to me, the main thing about Trump's speech is that he was really open about saying that he wants to incite violence against Americans. He said, "This is what I expected. It's kind of the worst case." Except he didn't include a loyalty oath, which I kind of expected to match the Nazi tradition exactly. But what he did say was that the enemy in America is the enemy within. We're being invaded from within. We have to deploy troops into the American cities. And you really should use them as training grounds for your troops to practice combat against Americans in these cities. And and this is all extremely forbidden by military rules. And it's one thing that gives me hope is the same thing that happened in the first Trump administration, which is Trump doesn't know anything about the military. And the military get a lot of training not to get involved in politics. And they know damn well that they can't be deployed against American citizens. And they know damn well they can't obey illegal orders. So I wonder if one of them will have the guts to send a memo like last time. Right before the end of first term, a general sent out a memo to all the other high members of the military reminding them your oath is to the Constitution, not the president, and you can't be deployed against American citizens. You cannot obey illegal orders even from the president. And in fact, I was reading articles about this. There's an interesting precedent. In the Andrew Johnson presidency, after the Civil War, there was a constitutional crisis, and he ordered the military to do something. He was being impeached by Congress. And so Johnson ordered the military to do something, and Congress ordered him to do something else. And they said, in times of peace, Congress is actually the highest authority over us, which is an interesting precedent to set. Of course, that's less comforting than it could be since the current Congress seems to have absolutely no purpose at all. We are no longer ruled by a multi-branch government. There's just Trump as the king doing things with executive orders. Congress just rubber stamps them, and the Supreme Court just rubber stamps them. So we no longer have three branches of government. We just have a monarchy de facto. But I think the wisdom of our founders comes out very nicely because you already see all the lesser Republicans like Ted Cruz trying to complain about the president and rise up. They're all like jackals waiting to tear up down Trump and feast on his dead body. That's what the benefit is. You don't rely on people's good nature, you rely on their sort of selfish greed and ambition. Uh, as soon as Trump shows any weakness, they will gladly tear him down and to take his place. So I expect Trump's empire to fall as his health fails. His health seems to be failing pretty fast. Another thing about this speech is he just sort of rambled off and didn't seem to know what he was saying and forget what he was saying, and his voice was really weak and stuff. So it seems like his physical health is really going. And as soon as he shows weakness, then 20 Republicans will jump up to take his place, and there'll just be a huge battle over that. So I think it'll be like other dictatorships. When they fall, the dictator's five sons all kill each other and make a mess. That's the end of it.
Yeah, we'll see. This experiment is still ongoing, isn't it?
The American experiment continues, and it's always had crises like this, although this one is pretty bad. Um, but I'm still hopeful we'll get through it. But it may be just like a glandular condition of me that I tend to be positive about things.
We'll
Because, but I'm,
see.
but I mean, I do. If Trump is still healthy enough in 28, he makes it very clear he's going to win. When he met with the Democratic leaders on Monday to supposedly avert a shutdown, he met
Yeah.
in the Oval Office, and on the Oval Office desk, he had Trump 2028 hats. So it made it very clear. And then shortly after they left, he posted insulting AI images, AI videos. I've seen them, which are very hard to understand with like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries dressed up as Mexicans which is very hard to understand. I mean, I'm sure it's some attempt to make a racist slur against them and say they're as bad as those Mexicans that he thinks are racist or rapists, but it was really made no sense at all. And he does seem to be losing his mind. He seems to be cognitively even more cognitively impaired than he was in his earlier days. He's always been pretty stupid and crazy, but he seems to be weak, stupid, and crazy now. Anyway, and remember when he vanished for like a week? And the vice president, J.D. Vance, said, I'm ready to take over. I'm all set. He kind of thought he'd be able to. So I think his health is really failing. And, the blotches on his hands and everything. It seems like Trump has a serious health problem, and he keeps vanishing from the public eye for a few days at a time, apparently undergoing some kind of medical treatment. So everybody is thinking, now's the time. Trump's going to quit and I'll be able to take over. So we'll see.
Sounds reminiscent of 80 years ago in
What?
a country
Which
in Germany.
Well, yeah, it's all dictatorships. Like I'm thinking of all the Russian leaders that just got older and older in office until they finally collapsed, and then there's a fight over the next one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, so I mean we're kind of we're decaying from this American experiment new technique to the old-fashioned technique, where you just have a strongman that takes power, and when he collapses, there's a battle of savage other people until somebody wins. Anyway,
yeah.
that's what I thought was the most important thing. Um, but I got a few other stories. Uh, let's see, might be worth. Oh, yeah, Jane Fonda is now going to relaunch the Committee for the First Amendment, which her father created during the McCarthy era. Now, and a bunch of people joined on, like hundreds of famous actors and singers and stuff, because they were doing it in response to the Red Scare then, when they were banning people in
Right.
Hollywood. And so they're forming a new one. I saw a couple articles about it, and they're very proud of listing all the people that joined. But what's missing is what they're going to do. I guess they haven't decided that yet. I guess they're going to meet and try to do something. But this is in response to, shutting down Jimmy Kimmel's show and Colbert, and Trump making it very clear he's going for a whole bunch more. So Trump is trying to dominate Hollywood to make them all politically correct by his standards. And it is quite appropriate for Hollywood to push back. And I think, like everybody else, everybody realizes that this is all temporary. I mean, nobody wants this crap but Trump. And as soon as Trump falls, this will all be reversed pretty fast, I think. Although if J.D. Vance actually moves up, I guess he'll continue this stuff. He's the big Project 2025 advocate. But anyway, uh, this troubled times in America continue,
Yeah, got
and
it. Got
I'd
it.
like to see the backlash to all this from the left, which is beginning to show some shape. Like the Democrats finally had the guts to not help the Republicans avoid a shutdown, which is doing something which is pleasing their base. I must say I'm pleased by it. They have to do something. And they did a reasonable job, I think. They asked for something reasonable. They want funding for healthcare, which they could reasonably get. They didn't ask for a total reversal of everything in Project 2025, which would be unattainable. They asked for something which they might reasonably get, and they refused to vote for the budget until that happened. So that seems like a logical move. We'll see how it comes out. Anyway, have you got one?
Nah, keep going.
Okay.
I have
Oh,
a longer one.
all right. So also, there's one where the Trump administration has now asked colleges to sign a compact in order to get funding preference. If they want research money, then they have to agree to freeze tuition for 5 years, cap the enrollment of international students, and commit to strict definitions of gender, and change their governance structure to prohibit anything that would punish, belittle, and even spark violence against conservative ideas. So, the usual culture war stuff. Uh, so we'll see how many of them do that. Universities have so far not shown much courage to stand up against Trump, and the lawyers haven't either. Anyway, I got a couple of actually Infosec stories. Um,
Well,
yeah,
Sam,
yeah.
did you see the meme video that was posted from Washington State University?
No, I did not.
So there was a student that ran into a psychology class that was underway
Yeah,
and did the Nazi salute and yelled Heil Hitler, things along those lines.
I'm tempted to do
And
that, but what particularly made this class a target?
well, that uncertain,
Oh,
but the students started yelling, get out of here. We don't need your hate. And so I guess it's hard to see, but it's been recorded. And there are lots of video recordings of this. The student apparently went out, and I can't tell if the teacher followed the student or if students in the classroom started following the one that was yelling.
Mm,
And they started chasing him across the campus.
mm,
And at first, they were kind of walking, confronting him. Then he was running,
mm.
and it was a big mob. And it looks like other people joined in. And
Wow.
it's hard to tell, but it looks like there were about 100 students that were running across the plaza at the campus. They finally caught up with him, and I think somebody pepper sprayed him.
Now,
So he went down. Some students were yelling, don't hurt him, but, seize him. And I guess he got kicked. I can't really tell from the video,
hmm.
but the campus police finally came along. They arrested him.
Wow. It doesn't seem like it would justify this crazed response. I mean that I mean, what did he do that was so offensive? Just sort of yell something about Trump and the Nazis? Hell, I
No,
might do
no,
that.
he gave the Nazi salute and just I think he was telling students like you're a bunch of idiots, you're just following, whatever blah, whatever you're being
But this was
told.
in Washington State, right? A blue
This is
state.
Washington State,
You
right?
wouldn't think, I mean, if it was like a center of Oklahoma, maybe, where everybody is totally MAGA, you might expect this response.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so kind of to bring a close to this story,
yeah.
the local TV station interviewed him. And the reporter said, "Are you a neo-Nazi?" And he said, "Absolutely." And do you
Oh,
believe all this?
what?
Art? Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, it sounded like he was a left wing protesting the Nazi symbolism. He was actually a Nazi. Well, that might
No,
explain action.
sorry, he's a neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
So he walks in the classroom, gives a Heil Hitler salute or
Uh,
Nazi salute,
okay.
then starts yelling, Sieg Heil. I don't know
Oh, okay.
exactly.
That explains why everybody hates him. Okay, I thought he was
Yeah, yeah.
mocking the Nazi stuff, ironically.
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
if he was
no, no.
actually a Nazi, then you can understand how there'd be a mass protest of 80
Right,
people
right,
against him.
right.
Okay, fair enough.
So they pepper sprayed him. He went down to the ground.
Yeah,
I think they kicked him or something. But
yeah,
I'll say some wise students said, don't hurt him.
yeah,
Anyway, handcuff gets hauled away.
yeah.
Press goes down there. TV reporter interviews him, and he says, "Yes, I'm a Nazi, and yes, I believe everything I said."
Uh,
So
well,
you think that's the end of it? Not quite. So the meme has gone around. It's turned into a meme.
okay.
Somebody posted, "Oh, it's that guy again. When I was taking that class a couple of years ago, he did the same thing."
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, he's not a student.
Well, yeah,
He's an outsider that goes on campus.
yeah. Well, all that
And
sounds kind of normal. The same thing could easily happen at Berkeley.
yeah, yeah,
And you get these
yeah,
guys going on campus like Charlie Kirk, for example, that are not students, but they want to push some political agenda. And but there's usually no need to do violence. And I don't approve of the violence, but it is normal for there to be like political activists of various types on campus, including crazy ones. And what you ought to do is have some kind of debate with them or something. I can see ejecting them from a class if they're disrupting it, but this doesn't
yeah.
sound like an exceptional thing, really.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. At Berkeley, there was a professor, and I forgot what the protesters came in, but he was lecturing just like at Washington. Protesters came in and they started yelling and screaming. And he kind of paused, turned, looked at him, and said, "Are you done?"
Yeah.
And they kind of said, "Well, yeah, I guess so."
Yep.
So then he turns to his students, says, "Okay, you heard what they had to say. If any of you would like to go and join the protest, you're welcome to do it. But as soon as they leave, I'm going to start my lecture and we're going to continue with the lesson
That
for the
seems like a
day."
very reasonable response to me.
I
Certainly,
thought so
certainly
too.
having a mob beat them up is not any good. I would just say, well, you're allowed to state your opinion, but we want to talk about binary here. So
Yeah,
why
yeah,
don't you
yeah,
guys go argue politics in the hallway while we talk about binary and routing or
yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is?
So, I think it's fair. He gave the students a choice,
Yeah.
stay or leave.
And I mean, that's part of a college education is you get
Yeah,
subjected to some political arguments. And, as long as somebody is not committing actual violence, you generally let them speak.
right, right. And, this wasn't hate speech at Berkeley for
Yeah.
this class.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's,
So this is something that goes on, but it's just kind of interesting to see. It's like right out of a movie
yeah.
where you see one person run out of the classroom, then two, then 10, then 50. All of a sudden, you have what looks like 100, and they have all the security cameras footage from the
Yeah.
campus showing this mob running across campus and this other guy running away.
Well, this is the problem of the time of division like this. People are just very angry and ready to get
Yeah,
really mad at a representative of the other side. I mean, logically, you shouldn't be that surprised or that hostile to a Nazi. We're currently ruled by a Nazi administration. There's a lot of people that voted for them. There's a lot of open Nazis in America now. It's probably inappropriate to be so outraged about them.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
oppose them, but as far as I can tell, they are the current Republican Party, so you can't like exterminate them or anything. Uh, anyway,
Well, we'll see. We'll see where this experiment goes. That's all I can say.
oh yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
let's move on.
yeah,
I thought that was kind of
yeah.
interesting
I
to
didn't hear
me.
about that. Yeah, so for information security, so ICE is now buying a tool that will track the location of basically everybody. You can get it from data brokers. The iPhones know where everybody is all the time, primarily because of real-time bidding for ads. Every time you open a browser or anything with an ad on your phone, it opens like a page and says, "Hey, this guy just opened a page that has room for an ad, and here's everything about this guy. Here's his gender, his buying habits, his profession, his physical location, the last 10 pages he looked at. So who wants to bid for this ad? They send this to hundreds of people automatically. They automatically bid to put an ad on there. So any one of those people can just harvest that data and they know the physical location of everybody every time they open an app. And so that data is sold and now it's been bought by ICE. So they know where everybody is all the time. And this does seem to violate the Fourth Amendment, but nobody seems to care about that anymore. So it's interesting to know. And this reminds me of the hippie days when they said, "Man, you can't have a telephone. The man knows everything." And
So
yeah.
what? Just why is this violation of Fourth Amendment?
Well, any kind of government agency, just knowing everything about everybody, usually you're only allowed to investigate people after you prove you have probable cause of a crime. But now, if you just investigate everybody, then you can, of course, find out what they did wrong, and you'll find some crime everywhere. And the point is, I think it's an invasion of your privacy. You'd have to argue that every time I have my phone powered up, I consent to being in public and having no consent, no expectation of privacy. And I don't think that would have held up, at least under previous Supreme Courts.
Hmm.
Anyway,
So
yeah,
would you claim this to be an illegal search?
yes, um,
Okay.
that's what I would say. I say if you're tracking where I go all the time, every day, before you have a search warrant, violates the Fourth Amendment. I think that's fair. And it also reminds me of the wisdom of Nicole Perlroth, the security reporter at the New York Times, who's now working independently. She wrote that every time she met her subjects to interview people for these important national security measures, nobody brings any electronics at all. No phones, no tablets, no nothing. You meet in like a cafe in some remote city and just have pen and paper. It's the only way to have any meeting where you're not going to be like tracked and surveilled, which I think is certainly true.
So with the license plate readers on
Yeah.
cars,
Yeah. Now that's there you can argue that if your car
yeah.
is out driving on the public road, you should have no expectation of privacy.
Well, if your phone is out traveling on the streets,
Right. But this
where's the
reports you
expectation of privacy?
that's right. So some of that you might have no expectation, but your phone reports all the time wherever you are, even when you're at home,
Yeah. Yeah.
even when you're
Okay.
behind closed doors at a club or something. I think if you can do this with your phone, then there's no expectation of privacy for anything anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I see where you're going.
It'll have to go to court for there to be these arguments.
Yeah,
And under the
but
current Supreme Court, as far as I can tell, they don't care about the Constitution or anything, just anything Trump says goes.
yeah, but I thought this has been ruled on because police have been using and buying cell phone data from the cell phone companies for at least a decade.
Yeah, but I think they aren't allowed to use it without a search warrant, but I'm not sure how it works. But it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, now we're getting into fine details,
Yes, I would like to have more
fine
expert
line
advice
of the
on it. You're
law.
right. Anyway,
Yeah,
ICE is
yeah.
now going to have that data for all the good it is. Um,
Okay.
and I was actually very pleased to see this thing. I have actually a couple of good stories. Um, Google Drive has now added anti-ransomware protection. They've trained an AI to detect all the activities that ransomware performs on millions of real ransomware attacks. And so when an AI detects that your computer seems to be encrypting a whole lot of files at once, it pops up a box, blocks syncing, and says, here, click here to restore your files back to their clean versions from the cloud. So that's actually a really positive step, I think. I've been waiting for this for a long time because ransomware's behavior should be pretty obvious. It suddenly starts rewriting all your files with encrypted versions. That really shouldn't be that hard to notice and stop. And Google Drive has figured out how to stop it, apparently. So it'd be nice to hear how this works out in practice. Another fun thing, Gmail business users can now send encrypted emails to anyone, which has not been possible before. Although the way it works, of course, the fundamental problem is if you go between email providers, you can't really have end-to-end encryption. There's no way to transmit the key. So what they do is if you're sending encrypted emails to another Gmail user, it goes straight there. But if it's a non-Gmail user, it sends them a link where they have to log into a Gmail account to read it. But in but however, both of these have the result that you can send encrypted email that does not travel any distance over the wire unencrypted, which is a
Yeah.
real improvement. I remember when Hillary Clinton had all these email scandals, one of the many things people got mad at her about was that email wasn't encrypted. But at that time, you couldn't possibly send encrypted emails to most places because you have to have nothing, you have to have encryption turned on at every provider, and a bunch of providers didn't have it. So if any step between you and the recipient doesn't support encryption, you can't send encrypted emails. And now this is the first serious attempt to fix that I've seen.
Well, I thought with Clinton that they had just implemented full encryption end to end. And the problem that Clinton was having was she wanted to read the emails that were outside of the government. And so those emails that were top secret were being forwarded to a Gmail account.
It wasn't. It was your own private server. It wasn't Gmail. But yeah, there was a mixing of personal and government stuff. I don't think it was Gmail, but I'm not sure.
It was my understanding a young intern said, "Oh, you can send these from top secret in the government to a Gmail account to get to
That's
your server."
that's bad. That's like what Sarah Palin did. Yeah, I didn't hear that part of it, but certainly there were a
Okay.
lot of email arguments. And the main thing at that point is emailing anything was not safe because there was no end-to-end encrypted email available
Well, there was
unless
as
you're
long as
inside the
you had the
government.
key.
But as long as you stay inside the government servers, which is where you,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
And
But
that's the
that was the point, was to
right.
get them outside of the government
Right.
servers.
That's the same thing with Hegseth, right? I mean, he should have been using a skiff and private communications for military transmission, but instead he's just using Signal with the whole world in it. So you can accidentally add people that aren't even military. If you're inside the government servers, there wouldn't be anybody in there that wasn't a government worker.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be clear, you can send encrypted emails to someone outside, but it's encrypted and they wouldn't be able to decrypt it. So it
Yeah,
would be gibberish.
there's also this start TLS thing that sets up a TLS tunnel between servers so it's encrypted hop by hop.
Yeah.
But it's not really end-to-end encrypted. So there are quite a few people in the middle that have a chance to read it.
Right. There could be a man in the middle capture
Yeah.
attack, if you would. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, and then I've got just a couple AI stories. OpenAI has a new social video app that will let you deep fake your friends. You can give your friend, or you can give everyone permission to create cameos with your likeness, which is intended to be like a fun joke between you and your friends. and a person whose likeness is a co-owner and can delete or revoke access to it at any time. But of course, this is nonsense to me. Obviously, it's going to be abused. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But I mean, already
So
there's deep fakes. Yeah.
is this publicly available?
Oh, yeah, yeah. But Trump just made a bunch of deep fakes of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, made him saying things like, everyone hates Democrats because we're all assholes and stuff. So apparently you can already make deep fakes of public figures easily with some tool. So I'm not sure this adds any more to it that isn't already there. But, this is what they've been saying for years. We're going to have this era of deep fakes where there's going to be videos so good that you can't tell them from the original.
Well, we've already seen that that's happening.
Yeah. And the last one I have is Salesforce has now launched an enterprise vibe coding project. Agent Force Vibes introduces a new autonomous AI coding agent claimed Vibe Cody. And they say comes at an interesting time for the vibe coding industry. Many vibe coding startups are continuing to raise large funding rounds at eye-watering valuations. Vibe coding startup Lovable, for example, is turning down unsolicited funding offers from investors after garnering a $1.8 billion valuation 8 months after launching. Vibe coding startup Anything recently claimed to hit 2 million in annual recurring revenue just 2 weeks after launching. But 2 million is not very much.
No, yeah.
And so, despite the hype, the long term success of these platforms is less clear. Due to the sheer volume of large language model usage required, costs for these companies are high and resulting margins are tight. And I would say that greatly understates the truth because current all large language model costs are not remotely what it really costs to run those server farms. So, I think I'm just watching the AI bubble get blown bigger and bigger and bigger. And like I say, I can't imagine it taking more than 6 or 12 months for it to crash. All this money invested into AI is all a Ponzi scheme. You you put in a bunch of $1 billion, you don't have any product, but a bunch more billions of investment come in. So you grow just based on that. But that's not real. At no point is there actually a product you sell to a customer that makes enough money to justify the investment. So it's just a Ponzi scheme until the music stops and then it collapses. So that's where we are, I think. And of course, after all this nonsense, then they go back to hiring people. I think we're just living through a bit of society madness where we pretend that AI can replace humans just to discover, gee, it doesn't really replace humans. Anyway,
Yeah. So Sam, you got one more. I kind of have a longer story.
nope, that's it for me.
That's all right. So this kind of caught my eye. You know that we have submarine cables
Hell
or
yeah. The whole
cables
world,
that,
the whole world depends on them. Yeah.
yeah, the whole world depends on them.
And they keep getting cut
And
by people.
yeah, and this is what caught my eye. Do you have any idea how often breaks occur to these cables?
I know pretty often due to sabotage.
Um, yeah, but give me how many do you think break in a month?
I would assume it's just a few times a year, but I don't really know. I see news
That's
stories
what
every year. I see news stories where somebody cut like 3 or 4 of them, and I see
yeah,
various stories about people trying to figure out some way to protect them, which there really isn't. How do you protect over thousands of miles of ocean bottom?
yeah. So again, what you're telling me is these trans oceanic cables are you suspect that they're broken maybe two, three, 5 times a year?
That's what I would guess. Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with you. I was shocked. It's 2 to 4 breaks every week.
man, is there some
Yeah.
natural? That sounds like more than enemy sabotage. Is there some natural occurrence like sharks that do it?
Well, this is interesting. So sharks were blamed in a few years ago, or more than, I guess, more than a decade ago. There was a meme video of a shark that was going after one of these submarine cables
Yeah,
and just chewing it. And so that was all part of Shark Week that Discovery Channel has. So I started digging into this a little bit more, and it's pretty interesting since we've had trans or submarine cables since I believe the 1850s,
Oh,
60s.
didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's some really interesting videos on trying to do that, on trying to lay the first cables. And they broke, they lost them, they went bankrupt, and then finally they got it going. But can you imagine in the days of I guess sailing ships, of
Steamships,
trying
I
to
guess.
lay a
Yeah.
cable
Yeah.
and then the cable breaking
Yeah.
and then scouring the bottom of the ocean to try and grab part of it to grab it up again
It sounds
and
like the
repair it?
moonshot of its day. I mean, just
Yeah,
way at the
yeah.
limit of possible technology.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, you want to know, let me just kind of share with you some figures that are going
Yeah.
on here. So the most common cause are ships, anchors, and fishing activities are 60 to 75% of all cable faults.
Well, now that you mention it, that makes total sense. People do
That makes,
trawl and have
yeah,
anchors on the ground, and they would get caught in the cables. Actually, now that suddenly that makes a lot more sense.
yeah, but still, up to four per week.
Well, there's a lot of ships, and this cable goes all the way across. So, I mean, now that
Well,
you
they're
mention it,
crisscrossing everywhere.
yeah. So,
Anyway, let me continue with the stats here. So that's about 75%. Other faults related to natural phenomenon such as subsea landslides, ocean currents are about 10%. Component failure, 5%, and unknown causes 10 to 20%. Now, there's been one in Tonga, the cable going through Tonga was a victim in 2020, I believe, of a volcano, underwater volcanic activity.
yeah, well, now
Kind
that
of
you mention it, the
interesting.
same thing happens on land, right? Your buried cables get dug up by people who are digging holes in the ground for other reasons, like a road or a ditch or
Yeah,
something. That'd be the
yeah,
most reasonable, most likely thing that will
yeah.
happen to it.
Yeah. Now, it's been claimed since the 1900s that sharks have attacked the cables. However, there's been no clear-cut evidence of that until 1995, which is fairly recent in my mind, off the Canary Islands. And this is pretty interesting. The shark, they analyzed the cable and they were able to look at the teeth marks, the bite marks, I'll put it that way.
Hmm.
And it turned out to be a crocodile shark that lives at a depth of around 4,000 to 6,000 feet.
Mm,
So
yeah,
interesting. Now, the claim is that sharks are attracted to the magnetic field that these cables give off.
yeah.
And the only problem with that is when we have fiber cables, there is no, at least I don't think there's any. Um,
There would be some
um,
because they have to have power to power the
yeah, they have to
amplifiers.
have power. Yeah.
So there might be
Yeah. I
some
was just
magnetism there
thinking.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. But the original cables that were laid, they had much higher voltage. And it's kind of interesting when they were sending the first message, whoever was controlling the voltage on the cable decided to exceed what the specified value was to make sure that the signals got through
Oh,
and burned the cable out after
yeah.
it was laid.
That sounds like an American principle. More is better.
Yeah, yeah. So, kind of interesting. I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is wasn't the cable to Iran cut
Oh, yeah. A bunch of
recently?
times.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
And some of those seem pretty obvious to be Russian sabotage of the cables. But now that you mention it, I think the number one error will just be accidental dragging of anchors and stuff. That makes total sense.
yeah. And, just to be fair, the sabotage or military government sabotage of cables, has been going on since World War One.
Sure. I mean, and all there's communication medium too. I mean, and this is
Yeah,
really the point of military cyber attacks is to just freeze your
right.
communications so you can then do some other attack and they won't be able to organize their response. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
Again, like you, I was shocked, by the number. But here's the real question. While there's all this damage that's occurring, how come it's rare that we have outages?
Well, I think there's a lot of redundancy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think the cables are worth a lot of money, so it's worth replacing them. All the
Well, yeah.
traffic and all the
Yeah.
telephone calls and everything go through them, so it's worth replacing them as fast as you have to make up for these problems.
Yeah. And I think Lithuania, maybe about 10 years ago, there was a woman that was collecting metal,
Yeah,
trash collecting, and she found this cable and she decided to cut it or
yeah,
cut a section of it.
yeah.
And it turned out to be the only line directly into Lithuania
Yep, I
for
remember
the
that
internet.
whole outage
Yeah.
caused by somebody just
Yeah.
stealing the
Collecting
copper.
metal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's why it's nice to have a real internet like mesh kind of thing, like in America, with a ton of ways out. Like I talked about this, like in other countries, like they just cut the internet entirely in Afghanistan for a few days. And, they can do that in China. They said, you can't do that here because there's not just one road out.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the way to do that is you have to have like the government ISP, and it's the only one you're allowed to use, and then they can turn it off. Like, remember when Obama was in there, he wanted to have an internet off switch. And it turned out, in addition to being a questionable political move, that's actually almost impossible technically in America for the government
Well,
to turn off the internet.
yeah. I mean, that was the design. That was what
Right.
DARPA wanted
Right. That
was
was
a
the point.
resilient. Yeah.
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 Yep.
And then, the other claim that people are saying is, well, what about using Starlink?
Right. And that was the point. Starlink was going to be another way. Starlink and Bitcoin are like ways to have something that the government cannot control.
Yeah, but with Starlink, still your signal, even though it's going up to satellites, so satellites are relaying it back to the ground,
Yeah.
which has to use fiber cables.
Well, yeah. And in principle, yep. But
Yeah.
we're pretty close to having like internet that nobody can stop these days
Yeah,
in
yeah,
America.
I would agree. I would agree.
All right. Well, I
All
think
right,
that's it
Sam,
for me.
that's it for me this
Yeah.
week.
All right. So we'll have another one on Tuesday.
See you on Tuesday.